Hello everyone, in this short video I'm going to talk about how to recommend your policy alternatives after you confront all the trade-offs of your outcomes and how to make a decision and then tell your story. So these are the last two steps of our eightfold in policy analysis. So basically, to make a decision, you need to stop, right? Because you already confronted the trade-offs, and then you focus, narrow down, deepen it, and then finally make a decision. So here's a test to help you to make a decision. We name it the $20 bill test. So what does this mean is basically means if you find a $20 bill on the street, then you need to think about it. If it's real, why it was not picked up by someone else, right? Why it's still there? So this is kind of an analogy when you apply this test to the policy analysis report. If you think your policy recommendation is such a great one, it's so good, then why it was not been implemented? So this is the test to prevent you from being too optimistic. All right, you need to think about what are the other things you haven't considered. That may be the problem, right? All right, then you need to tell your story. Now remember this, as a policy analysis, you may have some expertise knowledge, right? So professional knowledge. However, your audience may be decision makers, but that person may not be expert in your particular area. And also you need to communicate with the public. The general public may not have the knowledge about your expertise. So basically means you need to tell your story in plain language and to let your grandma understand. So we call this the grandma test. Right? So basically means you need to tell the story, your analysis in a way that your grandma can also understand, so that the decision makers and the public can understand too. Right? So this is the test you are going to apply to your policy analysis report. So then we have another design problem we need to handle. So if based on your alternative and your criteria and your projected outcome, but it seems to you it's impossible to find an alternative that will satisfy all the important criteria. For instance, legality, political acceptability, administrative robustness, and improvability, or policy sustainability, etc., right? Without the support of many other inputs or process. So which may themselves be in need of augmentation or repair, right? Because that will be the design problem. Now let me give you an example. Say now we face a problem that the disadvantaged students are not making progress. They lagging behind. So what are some possible alternatives to help them? One would say, okay, let's do some extra homework. So if they are not making adequate yearly progress, right? So if the logic behind that will be like, they practice more, they understand more, then they may perform better. Well, on the other side, we rewarded teachers on the basis of the learning outcome of low-income students. So how can these two alternatives help those students that we are targeting? But what are the problems associated with the extra homework alternative? Now, because these are the students may need help, right? It works only if the extra assignments get done, because then you would say, okay, they practice more. However, the reality might be, you need a parent's effort, but think about this. They lagging behind. Maybe at the first place is because they don't have sufficient time to do their homework, and there's no sufficient parents' attention being paid to these students' homework, because their family condition may not allow them to prioritize the homework. Right? They are, for instance, suffering from illness, chronic illness. Maybe they are suffering from poor economic conditions, etc. Right? Food and nutrition, water, etc. So extra homework actually will not help them, but worsen the situation. So what are the problems of rewarding teachers? Then it could punish those teachers for problems beyond their control, right? Everything happened in students' home or family, rather than not so much that a teacher can do, right? So a teacher can't help a family become rich. And also, you may push the most talented teacher towards school for those schools serving more affluent students. Then the gap between the rich and the poor students widens. So it will worsen the situation. It's a larger gap, right? So that's maybe the problem in terms of rewarding teacher. And the rewarding teacher also causes some other issues. If rewarding teacher based solely on student test score, then this monetary incentive may drive those good teachers to focus only on tests. But we all know education is more than just test scores. So the handling a design problem is when you are confronting a trade-off, you try to make a decision, but you find it's very hard for you to make the decision. And the alternative and the criteria and the outcome, if you're mapping them together and you find there's actually a problem within it, then that itself becomes a problem that needs to be solved. Then of course you need to adjust either your alternative, your criteria, and then based on, or both, right? So then based on them, you project your outcome and confront trade-offs again. All right, so the crossworks to the eightfold path is an iterative process, right? So you don't need to necessarily restrict from follow these steps. And but anyway, for problem you may focus on a primary outcome, right? Then when you consider the alternatives, you configure the system's organizational structure and its operating system process. And when you consider criteria, then you need to define the objectives to be achieved. While also, when you project the outcomes, they need to test whether it will work or not. And when you confront trade-offs, you also need to examine the system from multiple perspectives. So basically means if there's a design problem in terms of your policy analysis, then you need to handle it. All right, so that will be all for this short video. Thank you very much.